What's up, nerds? It's MTG, man, and welcome to Build Your Own Precons, but like with quotation marks around it. So, the cards in this deck come out to $44.88, not including the commander. The idea kind of being you play Tarkir Dragonstorm draft, you draft the commander, you want to build a deck around it. Alright, here's $45 worth of cards that can make a pretty solid deck, I would say, around this commander. That commander, of course, being Ureni the Song Unending. Now, 8 mana, 10/10, flying, protection from white and black, which protects it from like Swords to Plowshares, Path to Exile, Go for Throat, all the black removal, all the white removal. So it's pretty good colors to be protected from. Plus, when it enters, it deals X damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures and or planeswalkers your opponent controls, where X is the number of lands you control. So this deck really likes ramping, but just land ramp. There is no like mana rocks. There's nothing else of that sort. And let's just get into the cards. So starting off, I think a really important card to talk about is Asinine Antics. Polymorphous Jest could also kind of fit in this category, but the idea being you play Asinine Antics, you turn all of your opponent's creatures into 1/1s, and then once your commander enters, being able to split like, let's just say 8 damage, right? It's an 8 drop, so let's just say we have 8 lands on the battlefield. Well, being able to split 8 damage across 8 1/1s is going to kill 8 creatures, which is just going to let you get the most value possible for your commander. Now that that's out of the way, we have creatures like Barney Paul, Clear Cutter, which just gives you value and helps you put lands on the battlefield. A lot of the cards in this deck are of a higher mana cost, but it's kind of viable if you see the ramp in this deck. For Green Shell, while the second ability usually isn't going to come into effect, having 10 or more lands will happen pretty often, and being able to give all your creatures +2/+2 is just going to be pretty solid. Rada, Heart of Keld, is going to let you play lands from the top of your library. This is going to help you guarantee that you at least get your land drop every turn, and we have cards like Explore that let you play an additional land. This will probably make sure you can get additional lands too. A cute little combo in this deck is Cultivator Colossus and Scouting Trek. When Scouting Trek is cast, you search your library for any number of basics, reveal them, put them aside, shuffle your library, and then put those cards on top of it in any order. So the idea is you take all, I think, 30 basics in this deck, and then you play Cultivator Colossus, which has, when it enters, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. If you do, draw a card and repeat the process. Because the top 30 cards of your deck or whatever is going to be basic lands, you just go land, 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 and this will make sure you have 30 lands after you're done, basically. The other cool thing is the deck plays a lot of lands, so Cultivator Colossus is always going to be pretty big and can kind of act as a win con, too. Another combo for the deck, it uses Llanowar Scout and Retreat to Coralhelm. Retreat to Coralhelm has, you may tap or untap target creature when a land enters, and then Llanowar Scout lets you tap it to play a land from your hand onto the battlefield. So the idea is you take a land like Is It Boilerworks, Gruul Turf, or Simic Growth Chamber, which when they enter, you return a land you control to your hand, including them. So you play Is It Boilerworks, you return it to your hand, right? Then you tap Llanowar Scout to play it again. When it enters, you get the Retreat to Coralhelm trigger to untap Llanowar Scout, and then it returns itself to its hand, and you just keep doing that over and over for infinite landfall triggers, which can gain you just value in different ways. Another combo in the deck, we use Eudora Grave Gardener, which has whenever a non-token creature you control dies, you may return it to the battlefield face down under its owner's control. It's a forest. And Zamone Mystery Unraveler, which has whenever a land you control enters, Manifest Dread. If it's the first time this ability is resolved, otherwise you may turn a permanent you control face up, which since the creature comes back in face down as a forest, you can then turn it face up if it's your second land. So basically, every time a creature dies, you just immediately get it back, which can give you more value with your commander and just other creatures in the deck being unable to die. There's also this nice little synergy with Mana-Seism. So Mana-Seism lets you sacrifice any number of lands and add a colorless to your mana pool for each land sacrificed this way. Well, this deck wants to get a lot of lands out, but you can do some cool things like World Soul's Rage, where you sacrifice all of your lands to create a bunch of mana with Mana-Seism, then you pump all that mana into World Soul's Rage. It'll do X damage to any target, so either kill a creature, or maybe even kill a player, and then you get to put X land cards from your hand or graveyard onto the battlefield tapped, so then all the lands you just sacrificed to Mana-Seism, you can get back with World Soul's Rage. There's also Crackle with Power, which deals 5 times X damage to each of up to X. The idea being that So in order to kill a player, you need to pump 8 into X 3 times, right? So you would need 24 mana plus 2 red, which, while that is a lot of mana to deal 40 damage to 8 targets, Mana-Seism kind of makes that possible. I mean, that's 26 mana total, so you tap 2 lands for Mana-Seism, then you tap the rest of your lands. Let's just say you have 13 lands total. 14. Let's just go with 14 lands. You have 14 lands total, so you tap 2 for Mana-Seism, and then you tap the rest. You float 12 mana, then you sacrifice all 14 to Mana-Seism, and then you'll have 26 mana floating for Crackle with Power. Which, while 14 lands is kind of a lot, this deck is really good at getting lands out, so this can kind of just win as soon as possible. And sometimes you don't even have to pump 8 into X, sometimes 7, sometimes 6. It really depends on what the life total of the table is, but it's just a solid way to take games. Moving into draw for the deck, Abundant Harvest either lets you get a land or non-land, so you can kind of just help you get whatever you need in a situation. If you have enough lands out already, maybe you just get a non-land, which will probably also let you play a land, because that's what this deck does. Or, if you need a land for turn, you just play Abundant Harvest and get your land. Adventurous Impulse lets you get a land or creature from among the top 3 of your library. This deck has some strong creatures, and it could also just get you a land if you need a land. Cathartic Reunion, you discard 2, draw 3. This deck has a couple ways to get lands out of the graveyard, so discarding lands isn't really going to hurt you. Eureka Moment, you draw 2, and then you may put a land from your hand onto the battlefield. Again, this deck just wants to get lands out, so this is perfect. Gretchen Twitchwillow, you can pump mana into her to draw cards and put lands from your hand on the battlefield. This deck wants to get lands out, this does that. She's also just kind of a solid blocker in the early game. Joint Exploration, so you either pay 2 and scry 2 and then draw a card, which isn't bad, or you pay 3, scry 2, draw a card, and then put a land from your hand on the battlefield. This is kind of a nice in-between. If we look at something like Explore is 2 mana, you may play an additional land and draw a card, right? And then we have where is it? Joint Exploration. If you pay the kicker cost, it's 3 mana, scry 2, then draw a card, and then you may put a land from your hand on the battlefield. So it's kind of like an in-between between Eureka Moment and Explore. And it can kind of just build up to a turn 2, turn 3, turn 4 play. Patient Rebuilding I usually wouldn't recommend, but because this deck can get so many lands out, it's kind of helpful just to keep your hand full. Basically, at the beginning of your upkeep, target opponent puts the top 3 of their library into the graveyard. Then you draw a card for each land card put in the graveyard this way. This isn't guaranteed to draw you an extra card every turn, but most of the time you'll draw 1 card, if not 2. The deck doesn't really have access to, like, you know, not Cabal Coffers, fuck. Phyrexian Arena, you know, that kind of, like, black every turn draw, Necropotence, that sort of thing. So Patient Rebuilding kind of does a fairish job just getting you some extra cards. Peer Through Depths, you look at the top 5, you may reveal an instant or sorcery and put it into your hand. This can kind of help you get pieces of, you know, Mana-Seism and Crackle with Power, or Mana-Seism and World Soul's Rage. The deck has a lot of strong instants and sorceries too, so it just kind of helps you out. At worst, you get Explore and you just get an extra land, you know. Royal Cartographer, when a land enters, you get an energy. You can tap it and pay 6 energy to draw 3 cards. While you're not guaranteed to get to 6 energy, the deck plays a lot of lands. You'll probably get there within 3 turns of playing Royal Cartographer, in which case, it's just going to help you draw cards over the course of the game. Solendi Vision is kind of just Peer Through Depths, but 1 more mana. You get to look at 1 more card, and it's a land on the back, which just helps us add to the land count, because the deck wants to play lands. Song of Creation is one of my pet cards. I try and put this in every deck I can. Basically, you can play an extra land on each of your turns, which is helpful. Whenever you cast a spell, you draw 2 cards, which will kind of just help the deck take off. But at the beginning of your end step, you discard your hand. Definitely a lot of risk-reward here, but I love this card, so I had to put it in. Tadiova Bedthick Druid. Whenever you play land, you draw a card, gain a life. It's just going to help you keep your hand full while keeping your lands full, I guess. Tireless Tracker creates clues when you play lands. You can just crack them for card draw, which will just help you win because drawing cards is good. Valakut Exploration exiles the top card of your library whenever you play a land, and you can play it this turn. So it just lets you have more cards to play, especially with extra land drops. Even if you do end up exiling lands, you'll probably get to play them. Winding Way, you choose creature or land, reveal the top 4, and put all cards of the chosen type revealed this way into your hand, put the rest in your graveyard. Most of the time, if you just choose creature, you'll probably find some way to get the lands back later, or you can just say land and help fill your hands up with lands. Moving into Food Clue Treasure, I just put Tireless Provisioner in this deck because we have a way to get infinite, like land ETBs with the one combo. So infinite landfall means we could get infinite treasure and infinite food to then have infinite mana and gain infinite life, which seemed pretty strong. This next section is Lands Please. These are ramp spells that aren't like the 2 mana good ramp. Some of these are just really explosive, some of them I just really like. Like Boundless Realms is 7 mana. You search your library for up to X basic land cards where X is the number of lands you control and put them onto the battlefield tapped. You'll probably end up playing this on like turn 4, turn 5, and then you'll be able to just search for 7 lands and you'll be at 14 lands by turn 6 and be able to play your commander, which is just kind of solid. And I like the fact it can get me so many lands. Court of Bounty, at the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a land from your hand on the battlefield, or if you're the Monarch, you can put a creature or land on the battlefield. So this is just a nice way to cheat out creatures or get an extra land drop. Into the Wilds, at the beginning of your upkeep, you look at the top card of your library. If it's a land, you may put it onto the battlefield. This basically means you're not drawing into lands most turns, and you're guaranteed to have your land drop. It's like, okay, if the top card's a land, you play it, and then you draw something that is probably more useful than a land. Or, if it's not a land, you just draw it anyway. It's definitely not the strongest card out there, but being able to get an extra land drop every turn is pretty solid. Nissa's Pilgrimage. So, you search your library for up to 2 basic forests, reveal those, put 1 onto the battlefield tapped and the rest into your hand, then shuffle your library. Or, if there are 2 or more instant or sorcery spells in your graveyard, which there probably will be, you search for 3 forests, put 1 on the battlefield tapped, and put the other 2 into your hand. It's just going to help you keep land drops. Spoiler, I don't play Cultivate in like any of my decks. I don't play it. So Nissa's Pilgrimage is kind of this, but just better. Except it only search for force, but whatever. Sky Serpent Seeker, it's a 2 mana 1/1 with flying and death touch, so it's kind of a decent blocker early game. And then as soon as you hit 4 mana, you can pay for its exhaust and then reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal 2 land cards. Put those land cards onto the battlefield tapped and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So you play it turn 2, and then you move to turn 3, and then you move to turn 4, assuming you have 4 mana on turn 4, if not more. You then pay for its exhaust, and by turn 5, you'll have 7 mana, assuming you make your turn 5 land drop, which is just pretty solid. It's going to help you ramp out quickly. Topiary Stomper enters, you search for a basic land, put it on the battlefield tap, then shuffle. Just another way to get lands out. Plus, it's a solid attacker and blocker after you've gotten to 7 lands, which you'll probably do pretty fast. Wayward Swordtooth lets you play an additional land on each of your turns. Again, if you have 10 or more permanents and have the City's Blessing, it can then attack and block, which a 3 mana 5/5 isn't bad. Moving into ramp, this is like the 1/2 mana ramp and or ones you can cast for free. Arboreal Grazer just lets you play an extra land, which is nice. Plus, it's a decent blocker. Broken Bond is removal. It can get rid of an artifact or enchantment, and then you get to play an extra land. The thing with this deck is we don't really play specific creature removal, because our commander kind of acts as that creature removal as soon as we can get to it. Coiling Oracle enters, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land, put it on the battlefield. Otherwise, put it in your hand. So it's either a draw or a ramp. Either way, you're just getting good options. Emergent Sequence, you search your library for a basic land, put it on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. It becomes a creature with +1/+1 counters equal the number of lands you've played this turn. So most of the time, it's just going to be like a 1/1, a 2/2, a 3/3. But either way, it's just a nice way to get another land out there. Sure, that land is now susceptible to removal, but pshaw, it's probably not that bad. Explore, of course. Flare of Cultivation is Cultivate, but better, because you don't have to pay for it half the time. Half the time, you can just sacrifice a non-token green creature to cast it for free, which, you play a turn 1 Arboreal Grazer, and then you play Flare of Cultivation and sack the Arboreal Grazer, and you're at 4 lands on, not 4 lands, sorry, 3 lands on turn 1, and it's just pretty solid. Growth Spiral, draw a card, play an additional land, pretty solid. Colony Heart Expedition, you're going to get to its 3 quest counters really fast, and then you get to search for 2 basic lands, so it's ramping you for 2, just helping you get out super fast. Planar Genesis, you look at the top 4, you can put a land from among them onto the battlefield tapped, and if you don't, you can just put another card from among them into your hand. So it's either an impulse or it's an extra land. Either way, it's pretty solid. Rampant Growth, of course. Sakura Tri-Builder, of course. Search for Tomorrow, I like it as a turn 1 play. You're probably never going to pay the 3 for it, but being able to suspend it turn 1 to just search for a basic land and put it on the battlefield is decent. I mean, what, you play it turn 1, then you wait turn 2, and then by turn 3 you're at 4 mana, probably 5 because you have so many turn 2 plays to get you an extra land. Viridian Emissary, when it dies, you search for a basic land, put on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Just a great way to get another land out. Removal-wise, we are playing Beast Within. Like I said, these can hit creatures, but you're probably not going to hit creatures. You just wait for your commander to hit creatures. Beast Within, Chaos Warp, Nature's Claim, Spell Pierce to counter non-creature spells. Tutor-wise, we're playing Analyze the Pollen and Eldritch Evolution in order to search for either combo piece creatures or just creatures in general. The nice thing about Eldritch Evolution is your commander is an 8-drop, and a lot of times it's okay to just sacrifice your commander because you'll be able to recast it so quickly. So you can Eldritch Evolution for basically anything in the deck. Plus, when you recast your commander, you'll get another ETB, and then you'll be able to basically just kill shit on the board again. So it's pretty solid. And then Muddle the Mixture, when you transmute it, you get to search for a card with the same mana cost. So a 2-drop, right? Well, we have a shit ton of 2-drop ramp, if that's what you need. We don't really have any 2-drop removal, so that's not as great. But the best part about it is, well, you need a 2-drop. Well, Crackle with Power is a 2-drop. Mana Seism is a 2-drop. World Soul's Rage is a 2-drop. So that's 3 of that piece. Llanowar Scout's a 2-drop, so you can get part of that combo. And Scouting Trek is also a 2-drop, so you can get part of that combo. It's basically just going to help you find your combo pieces if you're going for that combo sort of win. Win con-wise, Rubble Hulk isn't really a win con for you. It's one of those things where your opponents make some sort of deal, right? It's like, okay, you let me attack you with my 1/1 so that I can get Coastal Piracy or whatever, and I promise I won't, remove your thing. Whatever. Whenever they make that sort of deal, you say, okay, I Blood Rush that 1/1 with Rubble Hulk, and that creature gets +10/+10. And sometimes this can kind of just take opponents out of the game. This is one of those, surprise win sort of things. And putting in win con is a little bit of a stretch, but it can also get pretty big depending on how many lands you have. Scute Swarm, you can go for a go wide win. Again, this deck has a way to do infinite landfall triggers, so you could just have an infinite number of Scute Swarms. The Great Aurora, each player shuffles all cards from his or her hand and all permanents they own into their library, then draws that many cards, and then each player may put any number of land cards from his or her hand onto the battlefield, exile the Great Aurora. Well, this card isn't usually ideal or a very good win con at all. You are probably going to have the most number of permanents because the amount of ramp this deck does, right? So if you have 12 lands and 7 cards in hand plus 1 or 2 creatures, that's 21 cards, and then you just dump lands onto the battlefield again, recast your commander on your next turn to just wipe whatever your opponents are doing, and it's never going to let them recreate that board state they had. Because even if they can play creatures again, well, that's great. Commander hits the table. I still have 10 lands. Here's 10 damage across the board. So the last 2 cards are Spitfire Legok and Tunneling Geopede. The idea being, if you have infinite landfall triggers, these can just kind of turn that into infinite damage and win you the game. Plus, the deck plays a lot of lands, so you can just kind of accrue value over time and help burn your opponents out. Lands-wise, we play Command Tower and Exotic Orchard for color fixing, and then Evolving Wilds, Escape Tunnel, and Terramorphic Expanse. Because you play them for turn, you get that 1 landfall trigger, and then you crack them, get the second land, and that's the second landfall trigger. So it's just a way to add up those landfall triggers, plus mountains, islands, and forests. So to put this into perspective, I don't know why the fuck it's showing the deck in ticks, but it's going to say $67 right now, right? Well, that's because it's using the pre-release pricing for Ureni. Now, once Dragonstorm comes out, it's probably not going to be a $22 card. Let's be real. It's probably going to be less than 10 because it's cool. It's kind of strong. It's definitely not $22 though. I think it's probably going to drop in price after the set comes out, hopefully at least. So, like I said before, the whole idea is, let's say you pull a Ureni in draft and you want to build a deck around it. This is how you build that deck. To some extent. Everybody's deck should be unique. Everybody's deck should just be, different. But this is how I would build a deck. Now, to play a test hand, So to play out a pretty basic hand, it would be something like forest turn 1, then we would just suspend search for tomorrow, go to turn 2, we can play our serpent, um, go to turn 3, search for tomorrow is going to not crack itself, but you get to cast it from suspend. So we get to search for a basic land, put on the battlefield. We'll go with a mountain, just a color fix. We'll move that to the battlefield untapped, and then we can play a land for turn, and then we can pay for Skyseeker Serpent, exhaust it, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and then we get to look until we find 2 lands, and we get to put those lands on the battlefield, I believe, tapped. Yep. So they enter tapped. Simic Growth Chamber, when it enters, is going to bounce a land to our hand. I think the best land to bounce is probably just an island. And then we go to turn 4. The rest go on the bottom of our library. Now, we can probably play a Tireless Tracker first, and then we would play an Escape Tunnel. We can crack it. We'll get a clue off of Tireless Tracker. We'll search for a forest, put it onto the battlefield. Tapped, we get another clue from Tireless Tracker, so we can start cracking them for value for cards, if we want. I think we could Cathartic Reunion, discard Asinine Antics and an island to draw 3, and then from this point, go to turn 5. We have a shit ton of mana open. We can Eureka's Moment to draw more, or Eureka Moment to draw more cards. We'd probably wait on the mountain even, go for Valakut Expiration, then play the mountain, exile the top card of our library. We can play it this turn. We can then play, Eureka Moment, draw 2 cards. We can play an additional land this turn, so we'll play the mountain that we exiled. Now we have 2 lands open, so we can go for Emergence Sequence to get another land. Basically, the deck just wants to accrue as many lands as possible to kind of turbo out the commander. And even if we don't turbo out the commander, we're going to be able to draw cards, churn through our deck until we either get, one of our win cons, like a combo, or we're just able to get a really big creature. We could have run out Rubble Hulk this turn, and it would have been like a 7/7. If we play it next turn, it's probably going to be like an 8/8. We could run out Scute Swarm as fast as possible in order to just flood the board with tokens. We're already at 6 lands, so we would just be creating Scute Swarm tokens. Either way, that's kind of how the deck works. Not too complicated, I would say, but definitely has a lot of power. And because it has so many ways to ramp for 2 mana, you're almost always going to have a turn 2 play, and then a turn 3 play, and then a turn 4 play. It very much focuses on consistency. If you look at the breakdown right here, we have 23 2-drops and 16 3-drops. So there's definitely something you're going to be able to do on both of those turns. And even though there's only 6 1-drops, we also have cards that we can suspend. We have, some of our lands are not fetch lands, but they're search lands. So a lot of times we just play them turn 1. Either way, the deck has a lot of options to just play as fast as possible. That being said, this has been Ureni, the song Unending. Build your own precon, quote unquote. This has been MTG Man signing off, I guess. It's been a while. I have other decks I've been working on. I think I'm going to build a deck for each of the dragons. And if you haven't already, check out the Definitely Not MTG Man channel. Or it might just be Def Not MTG Man. I'm not really sure. I forget how I named it. It's kind of the side channel. But I just put up a video about this D&D story that happened a couple years ago. But I think it's really fun. I kind of poorly animated it. And yeah, just enjoy. Peace out, nerds. Woo.